بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. So from the first day, the family of the Prophet, Ahlul Bayt, they were very keen on collecting the hadith, not just the Quran, but the hadith, every saying of the Prophet. And thus Imam Ali gathered every saying of the Prophet beside the Quran, every hadith of the Prophet in his book, which is Al-Jami'ah. Al-Jami'ah. Al-Jami'ah, of course, in Arabic today means the university, but here it means the gathering, the book that gathers a collection or something. Al-Jami'ah, or some people call it Kitabu Ali, the book of Ali. Or some people call it As-Sahifa, the book. So you find references to this book with these three names. As-Sahifa, which is the book. This is Ali's book. And this is the gathering. Okay? Which all lead into one, the name of one book that Ali used to carry with him, just like you guys today, when you carry this book, and whatever the Prophet dictates to him, he will write it down. It would not go unnoticed. Every sentence the Prophet says, every sentence, every hadith, every narration, Salaam alaikum, every story is being recorded in this book. And this book has been preserved by Ahlul Bayt. So Imam Ali will pass this book to his son, Imam Hassan to Imam Hussein to Imam Zain al-Abidin, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq. And we see some references to this book during the time of the fifth Imam and the sixth Imam. Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq. Their students, some of their students, they said, we saw the Imams carrying this book, Kitab Ali. The Imams, those two Imams. So this book has been seen and traced. It means it does exist, and it existed for a long time. And we believe it's still this book exists with Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salatu wassalam. Now, what type of book? Is it this style? No, it's not this style. Have you seen a roller where they roll the cloth, They used to write on this in the past. Why? Because these were pieces of leather. They write on these parchments or pieces of leather, then they stick them to each other, so it becomes long. So it wasn't paper like that. This paper is new. It wasn't like that. This probably is 400, 500 years ago. In the past, they used to bring the piece of leather. Sometimes it's not even, okay? It has different shapes, they write, and then they stitch them to the next one, the second one, the third one, the fourth one. So they would roll it later on, and it has a big size. Sometimes you can see in a synagogue here. Have you been to a synagogue? Sometimes in a synagogue, some of their holy books scroll. It's called scroll. So this Kitab Ali was like a scroll, not this book. Though it is called Sahifa, and Sahifa is book, but then the shape of it was different. That's the original form of it, Kitab Ali.
And it's not available.
It's not available for the public, but some parts of what in the book is available in other books. So it has been referenced in other books, part of it. some statements from that book. So this, they say this passage is from Kitab Ali, according to the Imams. Imam al-Sadiq says this mas'ala, this question, this fiqhi issue is from Kitab Ali. So it could be full page, 2 pages, 3 pages, it depends. But the same actual book, no, it's not available with people. It's not. And the Prophet used to tell Imam Ali what is halal and haram. And we have been told that this book is so extensive that it has sometimes you come across small details in the rulings, in the fiqh. Very small details are found in this book. Whatever the Prophet used to tell and say to Imam Ali, he would put it there in that book. So it was a notebook, but a huge notebook, which lasted, I don't know. Imam Ali was with the Prophet even before the Prophet started his mission. Even before the Prophet started his mission. So it could be 30 years, something like that. And Imam Ali would gather all these informations in this book. عن جعفر عن الإمام الصادق عن أبيه الإمام الباقر قال Imam al-Baqir said, Imam al-Sadiq narrating on behalf of his father Imam al-Baqir, في كتاب علي كل شيء يحتاج إليه. في in Ali's book, في كتاب علي كل شيء يحتاج إليه. In Ali's book, there is everything, كل شيء, people need. Every answer is in this book. So this book was very extensive, was very detailed. It has huge number of narrations and hadiths. In another hadith, the Imam says, وَعِندَنَا الْجَامِعَةِ, and we have, it's with us, this book of Jami'ah. وَمَا يَدْرِيهِمْ الْجَامِعَةِ, they don't know the value of this book that we have. وَمَا يَدْرِيهِمْ. Don't you read in the Quran, الْقَارِعَةُ مَا الْقَارِعَةُ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْقَارِعَةُ. Allah says in the book, Al-Qari'ah, the huge sound, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْقَارِعَةُ. You would never realize what this sound is, which is about the Day of Judgment, when the Day of Judgment begins. So Imam al-Sadiq is saying that this book, people cannot realize the value of this book. Very extensive, very valuable book. So, وَتَوَارَثَهَا الْأَئِمَّةِ, the Imams, they will pass this book. So this book is a reference. It's a reference that people need. Even the Imams sometimes, they check with this book. Sometimes before they go, they give the answer, they look into that book. They read the answer in this book. And this book is the oldest writing beside the Quran. Beside the Quran, put the Quran now aside. Beside the Quran, this is the oldest writings from the time of the Prophet. From the prophets. This is the oldest book from the time of the Prophet. And the most valuable book and the most authentic book and document. Imagine, without comparison, I'm not making a comparison, just giving an example. A president, a sultan, a king who has a personal secretary for 20, 30 years, and this personal secretary is writing everything the sultan does or says. That is an encyclopedia. Really, it's an encyclopedia. So this is the value of this book. Imam Ali was with the Prophet, except for some time when he dispatched him to Yemen. For some reason, the Prophet sent him to Yemen. But then, Most of the time, Imam Ali was with the Prophet, and he will put everything the Prophet says in this book. We have another book that belongs to another person who was also with the Prophet. And that is also a source of knowledge and a source of fiqh, jurisprudence. Our Imams would use that book too as a reference. Mushafu Fatima. Mushafu, book of Mushafu Fatima, which unfortunately some people from other traditions, they think that this is a Quran. Just because the name is Mushaf, so they say then the Shias, they have a different Quran. See, they admit, they say Mushaf Fatima. Mushaf means book. Mushaf means when you put suhuf, these are papers. These are papers. When you put them in together, becomes Mushaf. That's it. Could be any book. Any papers, when you gather them in one place, becomes Mushaf. And the Quran is called Mushaf because it is gathered in one place. So this is not Quran. It is again a personal notebook, just like yours now. That's Fatima carried with her whenever her father comes to her house and he says something or she asks him something, she will write it down. Valuable book. And of course, the father would say things to his daughter. It could be very, very special. Very special, the things. It could be secrets. So Fatima will write it down. Writings was very encouraged in the school of Ahl al-Bayt. Unlike other schools, they didn't encourage writing. And I will read for you a couple of hadiths, stories, where some Sahabis, companions, they love to write what the Prophet says, but others told them, don't do this. These stories are mentioned in other books, not our books. We bring evidence from others. So, this story, the story is Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. And a man called Abdullah, Sahabi, companion. His father is Amr ibn al-As. Amr ibn al-As, one of the right arms of Muawiyah. This is his son, Abdullah. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. He says, I used to write everything the Prophet says. I carry with me a notebook, not a notebook, I call it notebook, piece of leather with him immediately. So he writes. So, and I cherish these, these pieces of parchments and leathers because these have valuable information. Quraysh, he doesn't say whom because he was too afraid to say whom. He said Quraysh. And Quraysh, my friend, when we say Quraysh, it has two meanings. The general meaning of Quraysh is the tribe of Quraysh that the Prophet subscribes to them. He's from Quraysh. Quraysh has one big tribe and 20 sub-tribes. One big tribe and 20 households. These 20 households, they belonged to this major tribe of Quraysh. So Quraysh is not one household. Quraysh is like when you say Orange County. This is Orange County. It has different cities. It has Anaheim, Irvine, Costa Mesa, Newport Beach, Laguna Hills. This is the case. Quraysh was like Orange County when you say Orange County. But these tribes, Taym, Uday, Bani Abd Shams, Hashim, these were the households. And each household has thousands of members, men and women. So when we say Quraysh, it has two meanings. One meaning is you refer to Orange County, to this big tribe, Quraysh. The other has political connotation. What is the political connotation here when you say Quraysh? What is the political meaning of it?
They represent Mecca.
No.
They represent
No.
the enemies of Islam.
those who did not, even though some of them accepted Islam, but they accepted Islam reluctantly. Reluctantly. This is why we call them Quraysh, because Quraysh, they really did not like Islam. They had no choice but to accept it reluctantly. Reluctant. They were fighting till the last second of their life. So the second meaning of Quraysh is those who, though they became Muslims, they said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, but inside, they were not satisfied. They were not happy. They were angry and frustrated. This is the political meaning of Quraysh. So this guy, he's a companion. He says, I used to collect and write. I was fond of writing. The Prophet is saying, you know, Quraysh told me. Quraysh, the political meaning of Quraysh. Not Quraysh, which is Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab, who died in Mecca. No. Quraysh who came to Medina. They were behind the Prophet, standing behind him, doing the prayers, but they were not in agreement with the Prophet. They always opposed the Prophet. So Quraysh told me, فَنَهَتْنِي Quraysh. Nahatni means they banned me. Quraysh, they banned me. Nahatni. فَنَهَتْني. Banned me from writing. Can you imagine? This is during the time of the Prophet, not after his death. They said, don't write. I said, why? What's wrong with that? They said, Inna Rasul, do you write everything he says? I said, yes, I write everything the Prophet says. They said, Inna Rasulallahi bashar yatakallamu fil ghadabi wal rida. But this is not right. What you are doing is not good. Because the Prophet is bashar, human. So this human sometimes gets angry and he says something, and sometimes he gets happy and says something. So you shouldn't write everything. They were trying to say what? The Prophet is what?
He wasn't a messenger. He was infallible.
He was not infallible, because sometimes he says something, according to them, is not good, is not worthy, is not worthy of writing. So don't do that. Don't. فأمسكت عن الكتابة. So I stopped. And then I came to the Prophet. فذكرت ذلك لرسول الله. I came to the Prophet. I said, Ya Rasulullah, Quraysh, those guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, are telling me not to write everything you say. So what do you think? What should I do? فَأَوْمَأَ بِإِصْبِعِهِ. This is exactly what the Prophet did. He pointed to his mouth. فَأَوْمَأَ بِإِصْبِعِهِ. أَوْمَأ means he pointed. بِإِصْبِعِهِ, with his finger, to his mouth. And he said, وَقَالْ اكتب, write. فَوَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ. By God who controls my soul. مَا خَرَجَ مِنْهُ إِلَّا حَقٍّ. Nothing comes out of my mouth but the truth. Don't worry, write. This is in Sunan al-Darimi. This hadith is mentioned in Sunan Abu Dawood, Musnad Ahmad. See these books, heavyweight books. Musnad Ahmad, Sunan al-Darimi, Sunan Abi Dawood. These are the books, heavyweight books in the Sunni tradition, who state this hadith, who narrate this hadith. The Prophet said to him, no, don't worry. Nothing comes out of my mouth but the truth. So don't listen to them. Don't listen to what they tell you. Write it down. Any question? So the banning of the hadith, as we mentioned yesterday, started during the time of the Prophet, let alone after the Prophet. It was intensified. It became punishable by law. But this process, this campaign of banning the hadith, banning the documentation of hadith, started while the Prophet was still alive. They didn't want people to know what the Prophet is saying. Because part of what he was saying was political. It had political direction, guidance to the Ummah. They did not want people to know what the Prophet is telling them. This is one. The second story, this is the first story. The second story is written in Sahih, Al-Bukhari, and many other books, but most importantly Sahih al-Bukhari, on the authority of Abdullah ibn Abbas. Who is Abdullah ibn Abbas? Do you write Bukhari? Shall I write it? Huh?
The same hadith was in Bukhari?
No. The story of this guy, Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, was in this book, Musnad Ahmad, Sunan al-Darimi. The second hadith that I'm going to state now, it's in Bukhari. And this is even more painful than that one. More painful. And that is before the Prophet's death. The Prophet was on deathbed. He was poisoned. He was suffering. And the Sahaba gathered around his bed. So he said, bring me a pen and paper. Ituni bidawatin wa qirtas. Pen and paper. I'm intending to write لِأَكْتُبَ لَكُمْ كِتَابًا. This is exactly what he said. I'm going to write a letter. Kitab here means a letter. A letter is kitab. When you send letter to someone, أَرْسَلَ إِلَيْهِ كِتَابًا. He sent him a letter. لَن تَضِلُّوا بَعْدِ أَبَدًا. You would never be misguided after practicing this book, practicing what is in this book. So here they are very smart. They know what the Prophet is going to write. They said no. فَكَثُرَ اللَّغَطُ عِنْدَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. See. Imagine the Prophet, the messenger of God, he's pleading to them to give him a pen and paper. Of course, the Prophet himself would not write, but he wanted someone else to write. So he ordered pen and paper. So, كَثُرَ اللَّغَطُ. This is what Bukhari says. كَثُرَ اللَّغَطُ. Just reflect on this and see how they treated the Prophet. Those are the companions. Those are the closest one. In distance, they were the closest one to the Prophet. Those are his disciples. Can you imagine? كَثُرَ intensified. Al-Laghat, what is Laghat? The argument. The argument intensified between them. Some people say, yes, this is our Prophet. We should give him pen and paper. We should listen to him. The others, وَفِيهِمْ Umar. The other group, Bukhari says, this is not me. Others, where Umar was one of them, they said, no, don't. Until their voices were very loud around the Prophet, and the Prophet is sick. The Prophet had high fever. وَقَدْ اشْتَدَّ بِهِ الْمَرَضِ. The sickness of the Prophet was worsened. This is 3 days before his departure. Umar said, حَسْبُنَا كِتَابُ اللَّهِ. We don't need what Muhammad is going to tell us. حَسْبُنَا كِتَابُ اللَّهِ. Suffices us, the book of God. We have the Quran. Quran is enough. Suffices. Hasbuna means suffices us. It's enough for us. The book of God. They did not allow the Prophet to write his last will, his last letter, his last statement. Can you imagine this is during his last hours? And they did not agree with that. Definitely for political reasons. Definitely for political reasons. Because Ibn Abbas later on asks the second caliph, why? Why you objected? What's the big deal about it? He said, because I knew what Muhammad was going to say. He shouldn't say that. I knew Muhammad was speaking about the Khilafah, his successor. And we don't want him to write this on a piece of paper. So the banning of hadith started during the time of the Prophet, before his death. These are just two stories, huh? These are examples, just two stories. There are other stories. On the other hand, in the school of Ahlul Bayt, the hadith of the Prophet was important. Because the hadith is considered what to the Quran? Huh? A complement to the Quran. A complement to the Quran. Quran without the hadith, we might get confused if there is no hadith that explains the Quran. Because this is exactly what God says about the hadith. God says about the hadith, Muhammad, I want you to explain the Quran. لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ. Through your hadith. So if you take the hadith and throw it out, Quran is going to be confusing. Because Quran, a verse in the Quran, an ayah in the Quran, can have several meanings. So how do I know that God wants this specific meaning? How do I know? I have to go back to the hadith. Hadith is the dictionary for the Quran. Explains the verses of the Quran. And then after the death of the Prophet, the real campaign started. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, one of the great companions, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. This is one of the great companions. Abdullah ibn Abbas, another great companion. Of course, Abdullah ibn Abbas, when the Prophet died, how old was he? Remember? About 10 to 13. Okay, Abu Darda. Darda. Those are great companions. Imam Ali alayhi salam. Those people were banned. Some of them were imprisoned by Umar ibn al-Khattab. Imprisoned. Why? To stop them from speaking. To stop them from speaking. Nowadays, if you want to shut someone down, what do you do to him? Nowadays, you can, let's say, ban him from having a Facebook, a Twitter account, an Instagram account, a Snapchat, whatever. On that day, you have to put him in jail because once he leaves his house, he's going to talk to people. So this is exactly what they did to them. They imprisoned some of the companions of the prophets. They were put in jail, and jail at that time was a house, under house arrest. They had no right to communicate with people because they kept transmitting the hadith, the sayings of the Prophet. They kept doing that. And Umar said to them, أكثرتم الحديث. What was the accusation? أكثرتم الحديث على رسول الله. عن رسول الله. أكثرتم الحديث. أكثرتم. You said too much. أكثرتم. أكثرتم الحديث. You said too much hadith. عن رسول الله. From the Prophet. So he was not telling them you are liars. No. He was not telling them you are liars. He agreed that what they say is correct, but you shouldn't say it. What is the difference, my friends? What is the difference between saying عن رسول الله or saying على رسول الله? What is the difference between saying عن رسول الله or على رسول الله?
Regarding versus from about the.
عن is about. An is about.
وعلى رسول الله like you're not on him but like
Upon?
Not upon. Upon. Okay, what does upon mean here? Fabrications. Fabrications. This an means correct. He is speaking on behalf of the Prophet correctly. Ala Rasulullah, he is lying. He's not speaking the truth. This is the difference. See, small letter makes a big difference. So Umar said to them, you are saying so much hadith from the Prophet, meaning that I'm not accusing you that you lie. You are not lying. But you should not say these things to people. Whereas Umar said the same sentence to someone, but he said, Ala Rasulillah. Who was that person? Umar said to him during his reign. Abu Huraira. Umar said to Abu Huraira, لَقَدْ أَكْثَرْتَ الرِّوَايَةَ عَلَى رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. Meaning that you said so much lies against the Prophet. Your stories, your narrations are lies. But to those guys he didn't, because those are heavyweight companions. Those are first class pioneers. He cannot accuse them of telling lies. But he can ban them because he's the caliph. He controls the affairs.
This is found in what book?
This one, if you know, this one is دروس في فقه الإمامية. He quotes, of course, a Sunni reference, but the book which is here in the footnote, دروس في فقه الإمامية.
Who's that written by?
Well, I don't know. He doesn't put the author. دروس في فقه الإمامية.
So is this the fact that they were under house arrest, these three Sahabis?
Yes.
Is that well known? I mean, is
Yeah.
recognized within the...
It is recognized. It is because Umar was very tough. If you go to this, you were not here last night. If you go to this subject and Google it, man, I will translate it. Man tadween al hadith. Man means banning of the secretion of the hadith. The banning of the writings of the hadith, if you go to this, you will find books and theses written on this subject. Huge books and theses. I have some of them on my desk at home. Some of these books who tell you in details how did this banning start, who were the people who enforced it, who were the people who were punished, imprisoned, or expelled from Medina. And sometimes they were chased to Syria also. If he leaves Medina and goes to Syria and he opens his mouth, he transmits the hadith, he will put in jail too. So it was strictly enforced, this policy of banning. Until when? What did I say last night? Until between 99 and 101 Hijri, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, a caliph by the name of Umar, not Umar ibn al-Khattab, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, Umayyad, towards the end of the Umayyad dynasty, towards the end of their dynasty, of their time, of their era, came and removed this ban. He said, no, we should allow people to communicate the hadith, to transmit the hadith. Who's known, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, he's known among the Umayyads as Al-Khalifatul what? Adil. The caliph who's just. He was not corrupt. Khalifatul Adil, and he lasted only 2 years. During his time, the banning was removed. And it was all because of what? Political reasons. But what excuse they brought? Tell Najat, because she was not here last night. What was the excuse that they advanced? Under the pretext of what? We are banning the hadith, so
Because people won't read the Quran, they'll go after the hadith.
because not only that, but because it is going to be mixed with the Quran. And people are going to get confused. Is this passage Quran or the Prophet? They get confused. So keep the hadith away. Leave people only with the Quran. But this was not the real reason. This wasn't the real reason. Because every person who understands Arabic, he or she would know when they read the Quran, they know this is Quran. I'll give you an example. If Iranian people, when they read Sa'di or Hafiz or Shirazi, okay, one of those top guys, and then you read another poetry written by, let's say, Fulan. We have in the community, mashallah, people who write some poetry. When you put these together, don't you find the difference? Definitely. When you read Sa'di, you know this is Sa'di. When you read Hafiz, you know this is Hafiz. But when you read someone else, the work of someone else, in your household, in your community, in your village, you also know this is not like me. I understand the Arabic literature, Arabic grammar, Arabic poetry. Al-Mutanabbi, the great guy in our culture, is Mutanabbi or Farazdaq. Immediately I know this is Mutanabbi because of his tone. Even if I have not read this before, I am listening to it for the first time, I would tell you this is Mutanabbi because this is his nafas, his breath. This is his style. So people would not confuse the hadith with the Quran. Quran is something else. Quran has a unique style. So they brought this pretext. Why? Because in many of these hadith, the Prophet speaking on behalf, in favor of what? Ahlul Bayt. And they did not want these hadith to be transmitted or promoted to anyone. So let's crash them. Let's destroy them before they get spread. And they will be used against us. These statements are going to be used against us. So let's ban them. Banning of the hadith.
So this man
Man.
This happened at the time of the second caliph, not the first.
It started the beginning of it from the time of the Prophet. I gave you example. They discouraged people who used to write. They told them, don't. Muhammad is a human being. Sometimes he says something that does not make sense. So don't write it. But then it was officially launched during the time of Abu Bakr. I mentioned the story. The story, Aisha says, they brought about 500 hadiths written on different parchments and papers and, to my father, Abu Bakr, during his reign. This is immediately after the death of the Prophet. And my father, I saw him, he did not sleep that night. In the morning, he said, I have to burn them down. Because if I leave these hadith, it's going to be mixed with the Quran, and I don't want to do this. So it happened immediately after the death of the Prophet. But then the campaign, real campaign, started during the reign of the second caliph. He really went after enforcing this policy. It became a taboo. It became a crime against the state. And then he expelled some who didn't stop, who kept speaking, who kept transmitting the hadith of the Prophet. He expelled some of them and he imprisoned the others. For some reasons, others could not expel them. They were old, they have families, they have homes in Medina, so he cannot send them elsewhere. But he put them under house arrest. The hadith, the hadith of Aisha is also written in the Sunni references, that she said, I saw my father rolling over. I said to him, Father, are you sick? Something wrong with you? He said, no. Something is keeping me awake. I can't sleep. So in the morning, he asked for fire. He put all these hadiths in the fire and he burned them. This is the hadith of Aisha. Now, so now, to be fair to both sides, if you ask a Sunni scholar today, tell him why there was a ban, would he tell you because of political reasons?
No.
Of course he would not say. So what would be his answer?
To preserve the Quran, like you said.
Yeah.
They will say more than that. They would say the Prophet himself, let me read the hadith. The Prophet says, لا تكتبوا عني. لا تكتبوا, do not write what I said. لا تكتبوا عني. ومن كتب, so far whoever has written something other than the Quran, غير القرآن, فليمحه. Let him erase it. We cannot accept this hadith because this hadith it is countered by many other hadith where the Prophet encouraged the companions to write. He said, I'm not going to say something wrong, so don't worry. Write everything you hear about me. Not only that, the Prophet used to encourage his disciples that if you want to memorize, use your right arm. If you don't write, you're going to forget. Just like you here, if you don't write these things, tomorrow I ask you about them, even myself I would not know. I have to write. Ista'in bihifdhika. This is the hadith of the Prophet. Let me read the hadith for you. Ista'in bihifdhika. Ista'in biyaminika ala hifdhik. A hadith. Ista'in, support. Isti'ana. Ista'in comes from isti'ana, means help or support. Biyaminika, with your right arm. Biyaminik. Yaminik is the right arm. Most people write with their right arm. Yamin. Yaminika. Ala hifdhik. To memorize. To memorize. So use your right arm. Support yourself with your right arm to memorize. Ala hifdhik. If you want to memorize something, then definitely you have to write it down. Tabaqat Ibn Sa'ad, one of the books that speaks about this, Sunni books that speaks about the banning, is an important book in the Sunni tradition. Tabaqat, the layers. When he speaks about the Sahaba, he puts them in tabaqat, tabaqah. Tabaqa means categories. And the author is Ibn Sa'ad. Ibn Sa'ad. He speaks extensively about this, the whole saga. Okay. Now, any questions?
Sorry, what is he talking about? Categories? About
The categories of the companions. He puts them in categories.
okay.
He divides them into teams. Team A, Team B, Team C, D, F. So he speaks, he analyzes the Sahaba.
He analyzes, okay.
Yeah, he analyzes them. No. He analyzes them. He analyzes the Sahaba and then he speaks about this. He speaks about this problem. As a result of that, my friends, let's conclude tonight with something important. We said, what are the two main sources of legislation? Hmm? Quran and Hadith. So two of you were not here last night. Quran plus. So Dr. Umid, These are two main sources of legislation. But how about aql, reason, a source? And how about consensus, ijma', a source? Are these two sources equal to these two? If yes, yeah. If yes, why? If no, why?
Quran always supersedes.
Okay. And then after the Quran comes
And the
hadith.
authentic hadith.
So we call them sources. Do we call aql and consensus, reasoning, and consensus, which is the opinion of the majority? This is consensus. Do we also call them sources of legislation?
No, I think they're methods.
Exactly, ahsant. They are not sources, they are mechanism. A mechanism. The sources are these two sources. So when you shut this, when you erase this, would that be enough to understand the legislation? Huh? It's not. Why? Because ayatul ahkam, we said ayatul ahkam in the book, in the Quran, how many? 500. And some people brought them to, when they condensed them, they brought them to only 350. 350 answers are enough to run our affairs, daily affairs. You need at least 35,000, not 350. So which source complements the Quran? Hadith. And we said last night that in the Sunni tradition, if you go to the biggest book in the Sunni tradition, it doesn't have more than 5,000 hadith. Sunan Abi Dawud has 5,000. Sunan Abi Dawud, an important book. Bukhari has 3,000, almost 3,000. Okay? But if you go to the Shia books, you find some of them have 60,000 hadith. 60,000. Look at the difference between 60,000 and 5,000. Why? Because in the Sunni tradition, it was banned, it was discouraged. So you cannot come up with more than 5,000. But in the Shia Ahlul Bayt tradition, it was encouraged to write it down. So they preserved it, they protected it. It did not get lost. It didn't get lost.
So Bukhari was 3,000, who was 5,000?
Abu Dawud, Sunan Abi Dawud.
So how come Abu Hurairah was not in prison, or he wasn't put on
Because
house arrest?
Abu Huraira he would not speak about 3,730. Dr. 730. So 3,730. This is Sahih al-Bukhari. Because Abu Huraira is Abu Huraira, you know. He doesn't have a sound personality. You pay him money, he can say anything. He can invent any hadith. So he was not deemed as a threat. He was not deemed as a threat. They go after the heavyweight companions who were with the Prophet, who are honest, who speak the truth, who tell you what they heard it from the Prophet immediately, directly. They go after them. They don't go after, those, mercenaries who survive on give him a meal and he can invent a hadith. We will come to Abu Huraira in the second lesson and see what his history was. So Abu Huraira was, left roaming in the streets. As a result of the banning of the hadith, what happened?
Someone closed the door, right?
Yeah, I know. When you shut, so ijtihad was shut. But then what did flourish instead? When you shut down the hadith, you don't want to know what the Prophet said, you shut it down. You conceal it, you hide it, you bury it. On the other hand, you're going to see something else emerging. What is it? Huh? Not just fabrications. Personal opinion flourishes. Personal opinion is called ijtihadul ra'i. اجتهاد الرأي. اجتهاد الرأي is personal opinion or personal reasoning. اجتهاد الرأي, personal reasoning, personal opinion. And this is very dangerous. It's very dangerous. Why? Because it does not have any rules or regulations. People will come. If I am going to ask people here in the congregation one night, let's say, ask them, people, what do you want me? Let's say they have full freedom here. We can change the law. We can change it. We can legislate. Okay? We are not restricted. When do you want me to make the Friday prayers? How many answers I'm going to get? Huh?
7 days.
Huh?
7 different answers.
More than 7 different.
24.
Some people say, let's have it at 6 a.m. because I want to go to work.
Days. Yeah.
Huh?
I thought you meant days. What days?
Yeah, exactly. If I say days, definitely many people say Sunday. More convenient. We are not going to work. We live in the West. No traffic. So I'm relaxed. Leave my house at. This is why some mosques in America, some mosques, those that were established 50 years ago in Michigan and Dearborn, they have Sunday service. You tell them why. They say because people don't come for it. Friday is a working day, so we have to do Sunday service. So they have a preaching on Sunday, and then they do the prayers after that. They don't call it the Friday prayers, huh? Neither they call it Sunday prayers. Sunday service, just like the church. They bring their families, their kids, just exactly like a church, like a Christian people. Because it's more convenient for them. So if you ask people about what should we do regarding prayers, regarding Hajj, believe me, if we ask people, what do we do regarding Hajj? Some of them would say, Sayyid, here in Arizona, we have a beautiful mountains, you know, beautiful this Sedona. Is it Sedona? Sedona, you know, nice place, spiritual. You go up in the mountain. It's really spiritual. I've been there. So why do we spend $9,000 and go to Mecca, you know, with the Arab people? Here we can have Hajj here. We can build a house for God, beautiful here. Or Orange County, the weather is nice. People are going to change. This is personal opinion. People have their opinion. People have their own prejudice, they seek their own comfort, whatever works for them. They do not want to be disciplined by anything. If you ask them about zakat, oh my congregation, all Muslims in America, how should we pay our zakat? 90% say no zakat because we are paying Uncle Sam. You know how many people ask me here? They say, Sayyid, we pay taxes here. This is not considered zakat. We are already paying taxes. They don't want to give zakat or khums because they are paying taxes. So many of them would say, no, we don't pay. Some of them say, we pay 1%, let's say. 1% of, you know. So you come with personal opinions. This is exactly what happened to Islam. Most of the Sahaba, they had personal opinion. Let's change this. Let's modify this. Let's make this more. Let make this less. Let cancel, abrogate this. Let's invent this. And this happens during the reign of those two caliphs. The two caliphs, Umar and Uthman. Now, Umar and Uthman. Abu Bakr didn't have much time because once he became caliph, there were wars that erupted. I spoke about them last night. After 2 years, he died. He didn't have much time to do anything. Most of these inventions took place during the reign of the second and the third caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab and Uthman ibn Affan. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ahli baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma